I would like to invite Mr. O.P. Sinha, ED Head, IRS, ONGC. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I would like to invite Mr. Saloma Yomdo, ED, Oil India Limited. He's on his way. Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Neeraj Bhatia, Senior Vice President, Business Development, Shell. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Inviting Mr. Ashish Verma, Global Account Director, SLV. Probably he's joining us shortly. And Mr. Bala Sahib Darade, MD Numera Clean Tech Solutions Private Limited. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I was just informed he was the first one to be here. And I'm so sorry, sir, to be calling you out in the last. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to begin the proceedings of the session, Foundation for the CCUS Initiatives. And this session will discuss the crucial steps for the early development of CCUS initiatives, focusing on frameworks for pilot projects, education capacity building, and knowledge sharing. So with those words, I would like to hand over to our distinguished moderator, Mr. Vikram Vishal, to carry forward the proceedings of this session. And over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Once again, good morning, everyone. We are moving from another panel on CCUS right there to this panel out here. So I'm really honored and privileged to be the moderator for this session with the eminent personalities on the stage who have tremendous experience in working in this domain and the domains before that they have contributed, particularly in the oil and gas sector and decarbonization as a whole. So I'll not take enough time in giving a brief because we have been listening to the deliberations since morning yesterday, starting with Dr. V.K. Saraswat himself and the deliberations that have followed afterwards. So I'll move to our eminent panelists and try to listen to them and the enlightening of the audience here through their words of wisdom around CCUS. So my first thought around CCUS is we do have carbon capture and utilization at a pilot scale happening in India right now. Let's say that 20 tons per day of NTPC capturing carbon dioxide and using hydrogen to produce methanol. But we do not have a pilot for storage of carbon dioxide at till this point in India. So, but then a lot of work is happening, a lot of R&D is happening, efforts are being put from various companies and R&D institutions, knowledge banks, think tanks, and so on. So we have Mr. O.P. Sinha here from ONGC. He is the head of the Institute of Reservoir Studies and pretty much leading the efforts within the company for developing the capacity and the R&D and also identifying the suitable spaces for storage of carbon dioxide. So Mr. Sinha, my first question to you is, what are the advances that are happening at ONGC? And secondly, what are the key roadblocks in that you envisage is there while we are doing this? And meanwhile, I also welcome Mr. Saloma Yomdo from Oil India Limited joining the panel right now. Mr. Sinha, over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Professor Vikram, esteemed panelists. First of all, I thank MOPNG for holding this CCUS seminar on the sidelines of the mega event, India Energy Week. The requirement of CCUS, CCS, we have been listening in different sessions, and it's now, it's not only requirement, I will say it's a compulsion for every company, for every nation as. Now coming to the foundation of CCUS, because globally many projects are on CCUS happening, many projects are in big numbers are pipeline. In India, we have started the work, but as of now, everything as far as oil and gas sector goes is on drawing board, definitely. But the things are matured enough on drawing board. Say, we have, I think, moved ahead from the R&D stage, and now need of the hour is to demonstrate a project. And demonstration is necessary because it will give not only the confidence to the operator, but also to the policy maker. So, as far as the initiatives which ONGC took in the direction of CCUS, our journey started a couple of years back, and we conceived a project That was essentially a utilization of captured carbon from refined resource to sequester and get enhanced oil recovery. But that will also lead to a huge amount of uh, sequestration of CO2. The only issue we faced, I think, technological gaps were identified and to the extent addressed. I'm not sure, because unless we start doing the project, we will be able to say that we will move on the learning path and see what other gaps are there. But what happened? The project was very huge project, and for any operator, it is difficult to start or demonstrate a very huge project with large capex in absence of any support, policy support. So that project did not. It's conceived, conceptualized, but did not start. So we have started, rather we have reached a very advanced stage on conceiving a smaller projects which we can take it on our own. If policy support is there, that is fine. Because yesterday we heard Mr. Saraswat, member Niti Aayog, that very soon, maybe in a 6 months or 1 year time, there will be some visible policy support to the this direction. So we are working on a project of say 80 to 100 tons per day of CO2 capture and sequestration. The bigger project was of the order of about 1500 tons per day. So at this stage, the I will call it a demonstration project. We are very much we are confident that we will be able to take this project forward. But those approval and other things will be sought. But this is a demonstration project which definitely ONGC is going to showcase to nation that yes, we can do this. In this journey, we have because this is first of its kind, so the collaboration of academia in form of your team led by you only at IIT Mumbai and our technology partners Shell, Schlumberger and Equinor. We are working together to take this forward, this project forward. But at the same time, I will take this opportunity to emphasize on the as we work on demonstration project, we have to parallelly work on 3-4 areas so that once we get confidence in demonstration project, we can quickly scale up to larger projects so that India being as we know, third largest emitter of CO2, so we can scale up as quickly as possible to larger projects so that the ultimate requirement of CO2 sequestration is addressed as in a very uh, uh, short span of time. So what we need to do parallelly, we need to have in place the carbon pricing mechanism. We need to have I will say there will be a requirement of legal and regulatory framework also, because once we start sequestering CO2, then the monitoring part and the insurance legal part will also come into play. So we have to gear up to on that front also. And another roadblock which need to be addressed, because we are talking of the foundation of CCUS initiatives. So one of the main roadblock which we are seeing today is the cost of carbon capture, which is relatively very high. It is definitely coming down, but it needs to come down further so that we can be able to come out with a large number of projects. So these are some of the areas where, as industry, as technology partners, as academia, through collaboration, we have to work together and resolve these issues so that we are able to come out with many number of projects on CCUS. So this was my overall assessment at the present where we are as
Yeah.
far as CCUS project is concerned.
Thank you so
Thank
much for very vividly capturing the essence of the gaps and also the advancements that have happened with your leadership in within ONGC. And you mentioned about the task forces, the interministerial task forces, and the CCUS draft 2030 roadmap for the upstream sector that was released by ministry, which was also led by you. And our next panelist, who has also been a very significant player in this whole story, both individually and representing his organization. All India Limited is also expected to come up with those schemes for possibly could be the first pilot demonstration in India. The good thing which I learned from the CMD earlier today was that source of CO2 is also within your company's domain. So that's really good. So truly an Atmanirbhar project that might come up from All India. But we want to understand how far you have proceeded with those activities. How are you ensuring transportation? How are you looking at the life cycle as a whole? And then what are the roadblocks apart from what was mentioned by Mr. Sinha that you still could also be an impediment to the actual deployment, and how we go ahead with overcoming that, Mr. Yomdo?
Thank you, Vishal, and good morning to the audience here as well, and a very good morning to the panelists here. Thank you for having me and Oil India in this panel for this session. The story for the CUS in Oil India goes back a long way. Quite a few years back, we had, toyed with the idea of using CO2 as a means of for enhanced oil recovery. So primarily, our fields in Upper Assam are matured. Recoveries have exceeded 30 to 35% from primary and secondary recovery. And of course, with CO2 injected into the reservoir, the recovery is expected to increase by another 10 to 15% on a global average. The challenge at that point of time was that the area where we operate in the northeast corner of the country is not highly industrialized. And that's the reason why the source of CO2 was a challenge for us. And then we reached out to a university in Scotland called the Hereford University, which is a premier petroleum engineering university in the United Kingdom. And we ran a joint industry project with them. And we went to them with the problem that we have a very limited source of CO2, so I cannot have a full-flooded CO2 EOR process. How can you help us with that? So they said that they will work on a novel project where a little amount of CO2, say 8 or 10% of CO2 mixed with water, can give a equivalently good recovery factor from the reservoirs. So that study took time, and then it was clear from the lab results, from the simulation studies, that incremental recoveries can happen in the range of 10 to 12%. So that's in the lab. So if you cut down that lab aspect and take it to the field and assume that a recovery factor of around 7 to 8% can be achieved, so a project becomes viable. So we took up this project, and then we are currently already in the process of injecting water into the reservoir through the water injection stations, and we are in the process of now getting that CO2 for a carbonated water injection project. So it's similar to soda water, if you call it, for injecting. And then there was also this thing came up that Digboy Refinery could come up with some source of CO2 as well. And that's the reason why we went to the University of Houston with their expertise. The professors working there, they were ex-Shell, ex-Chevron people who were working in the field earlier. So we did a collaborative study with the University of Houston. Again, we identified a reservoir where we could use pure CO2 for EOR. Now, sometimes it's wishful thinking. Things don't happen as you plan. It's not a perfect world. So we identified 2 spots. Technically, we call them inverted 5 spots, where you have 1 injector and 4 producers on the corners. And we injected 2 sites, but things didn't go as planned. One of the injectors, one of the existing wells, could not be revived. And the other injector had to be drilled, so we drilled that. But then the 4 producers, which were supposed to be producers, could not be revived. We could only revive 2 of them. So the project is still being taken care of, and now we are evaluating some other reservoir where this process can be implemented. And for that, we are also in the process of signing an MOU with IOCL for this. And the question which you came to was then we also started thinking about storage because everybody started talking about storage as well. And interestingly, what happened was ADB came to us and said that we could fund the project, the study. And we said we are going to use CO2 for EOR, for enhanced oil recovery, where essentially 50% of the CO2 gets stored, sequestered in the reservoir permanently, and roughly about 50% gets produced and we can recycle it. And then COP26 happened. And the next month, Asian Development came back singing a different song and said, if you are going to use CO2 for EOR, you are going to increase your oil and gas production, which is going to be more harmful. So we can't support a project like that. And and then I said, hang on, well, what can we do now? Then they said, okay, if you are going to do a project for storage, we can come in back. I said, okay, forget about it. Thank you very much. We can do our project ourselves. That's not at all an issue. So we went out to the world. We went out to Houston during the SPATCE, during Sarah Week, with the preliminary information and data that this is the data that we have in our basin in Upper Assam. And prima facie looking at the data, everybody got scared actually. They said, this is highly seismically active zone. You are in zone 5, very, 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 very young formations. I said, young, these are 65 million year old formations. You call them young? You say, yeah, they're pretty young. Your faults are going to be connecting from the basement to the alluvium. You don't know the leaks. Existing wells are old, 100 years, 50 years old, very, very scary. So that again held us back. And then we shifted our entire strategy. And from the northeast, we went directly to the west, where we have our field in Rajasthan. And there is a study that we are currently taking up where we are producing gas in Rajasthan, which has 25% CO2 in it, 20 to 25%, 30% nitrogen, and the rest 50% is pure methane. So we are losing out on the value of the gas, on the calorific value, which is getting halved, and our revenues is getting halved. So we thought we will sweeten the gas. And so here is the concept where we become the source as well as the sink. So that 25% gas CO2 we plan to strip off and capture it. And we have a field nearby as well, which is about 20 kilometers away, and where we have gas reservoirs which are currently abundant. And also we have saline aquifers. And so we are trying to undertake this study. Actually, the tender is already out. We have a pre-bid on 13th of this month as well. And we plan to finish the project in 6 months' time. And then see the viability of whether we can capture our own CO2 from the gas and then use that CO2. Maybe we can truck it, we can pipeline it. That will work out in detail. And then store it in our field there in Rajasthan. And that area is seismically stable. And literally it's in the middle of the desert, so there is no population, there is nothing literally. The international border is nearby, and the 19-20 kilometers of no man's land makes an ideal spot onshore, because primarily many storage facilities are offshore. So that's the one that we are working on currently, and I think that's what you wanted to hear.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And it's very impressive to see from a wishful thinking that you started your talk about it to a more realistic approach, and that you have looked into the screening. And that's the importance of the studies that have to go before we go ahead with any kind of injection. So that's wonderful to know. And when we talk about becoming realistic, we have an expert from Shell, Mr. Neeraj Bhatia. Shell has the experience of doing these projects around the world. Several millions of tons of CO2 have been injected in different fields, both for EOR and for storage purposes. I would like you to bring that experience on this table here and share the more reality checks that are required in terms of the challenges that might come when you are an operator of CO2 storage in India.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Firstly, thanks for the invitation. It's a privilege to be here. I've been associated with CCUS for the last 4.5 years, and it's been a very exciting journey. Am I audible? Okay, sorry for that. It's been a very exciting journey, and glad to see if I can sort of be of some use and share some thoughts. I think, although I was talking to people on the sidelines that I think we are in the last session and almost every point has been covered in the last 1.5 days. Nonetheless, there'll be a little bit of repetition, but a little bit of sharing of knowledge that I have. I think, firstly, we've got to see both the angles of both a holistic view, a full value chain view, and also a breakdown of the value chain. I think both are important from several aspects. There are aspects of operations, there are aspects in design, there are aspects actually in creativity around financing and commercial models. I think some of these things have been demonstrated by some of the projects that are already on, where Shell has been a partner. Nonetheless, I think coming back here, holistic view definitely. So therefore, you need those hubs. There is no shortcut. I think we'll keep coming back and going round and round if we don't plan that and we don't design that on day one. Breaking down is important because it is going to be very complex to manage a huge full value chain commercial model. I think you need to attack all the costs separately. So probably if we are talking about carbon capture as being the lead or the max or the most important cost, it needs to be treated separately. So you need to break it away from the rest of the value chain, which is transportation, sequestration, and MMV. Some of the other thinking that probably I like to bring in quickly here, and a topic which is less discussed, which has been MMV. I think it is one of the most important ones. People are flagging that area since yesterday and today also in the roundtable. But I think a lot more understanding has to be brought there because that is a cost element as well. There is a risk element, there's a risk mitigation, and there's a cost element there. I mean, you can look at costs upwards of $10, $15. We need to ascertain that. We need to see where it sits. Transport, similarly, is a cost element. I think depending upon what you need to do, there are reflections on saying that, okay, is there a current infrastructure available that can be refurbished? Well, it has limited appeal. Generally, the way we are looking at, you were mentioning about the 5,000 kilometers in the US. I think we'll probably need to create that in India to make sure that, it is meeting the requirements and the metallurgy and all the other design requirements. So that is the other bit that needs to be treated separately. I think technology capability across the value chain is available independently and separately. And I think it makes sense to break it down and bring those collaborations individually and to the point where they are fit for purpose. The other element here is also the fact that how are we looking at capture costs? I think capture technology, and we're all talking about high cost, low cost. But what are the parameters on the basis of which you can say it is high or low? I mean, is it a general figure which exists that, okay, it is not $10, it is not $15, it is 25 or 30, or maybe 50 as well? But then I think we need to appreciate what does a capture plant, what is the capture plant expected to deliver? How long is it going to be working? What is the breakdown of capex and opex? I think those are the other finer nitty-gritties which actually will throw light on how you're looking at a project and how you're designing a project going forward. Coming back here to another aspect is financing. I think something that got mentioned just a little while ago. One of the most important aspects is to be really creative about financing and funding because it's not easy, it's not simple, and generally it's not been done before to scale. So what do we do? What are the lessons we learn here? I think some of the things that I've learned talking to institutions over the last 4 years for an even demo opportunity in India, I think most of them, and maybe if I'm wrong, then I need to be corrected, but 99% their manifestos itself define that they do not fund fossil fuel based emission projects. So, I mean, and we can talk about the whole list of names over there. The point I'm making is that India needs to really invest in that space as well and look at our own options. We need to be creative about how some consortiums and coalitions need to come up to really look at these projects, because otherwise it's not going to be a simple exercise going forward and saying that, okay, funds are available. Funds are available for studies. Funds are not available for demo projects, not for fossil fuel based emissions. That's very clear. So how do we crack that? We've got a problem here. All our emissions are that coal based essentially. So we need to be creative. We need to probably create our own institutions here and see how they can work with some of these projects and take them forward.
Wonderful. I think
Another
maybe I'll get back to you. I have some question on MMV and others. So
There's
maybe
one more important
Sure,
point
please. Yeah.
I wanted to make was that there's one aspect which we are not discussing right now, which is creation of a new market. Somebody's got to pay for these products. And I think you can claim that if you're actually finally completing this whole value chain, you're a greener product. Then where is how are we factoring in the green premium? That's a very important aspect. Because there'll be government support, there'll be incentives, there'll be taxation, there'll be penalties. But this is an opportunity as well. We need to think about how we're going to develop markets, how we're going to look at the points of inflection, what are the threshold volumes and shares that need to be established, which will also generate revenue out of these new products, that the green products that we are going to brand them as. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for bringing all these very pertinent points out here. And so in my class, actually at IIT, I have an open book exam and also a surprise exam. So for unlike other panels where I was a panelist, I did have the question paper, but none of them had the question paper out here. So the surprise for Ashish is that Ashish, you have Mr. Ashish Verma is from SLB, has had a lot of substantial amount of time spent in the Western world and witnessing the growth out there. And I think now you're based out of India and trying to bring the knowledge and scale up here. I have two kind of thoughts in your opening remarks, if you could include. Is one, again, what experiences does SLB bring on board to accelerate the deployment of CCUS in India? I mean, there are complaints from all of us that it's not moving ahead fast, but you come with that things that you have navigated all three through several years and decades in the Western world. How do you bring that? And second, I personally are engaged very closely with SLB as their R&D kind of research partnership with them, with a lot of support that comes from SLB to IITs. So in their software and training and all. So I want you to also share that your role there is also very crucial for advancing capacity building in India. Ashish.
Hello. Thank you, Professor, for the questions. And it's really a privilege to be part of this panel here. Professor, gave some background about me, but I'll just talk about it a little bit. My involvement with CCS started around 2010. That point in time, in India itself, there was a big plan for a coal to liquid project of around 80,000 barrels here. And the developers were looking for carbon management at that point in time. And this was a very new word. Of course, we all heard about the Kyoto Protocol and few other carbon trading and other aspects, CER, etc. But the scale of this project was in the millions of tons. That was my first interaction. And it was a novel word for me, basically, trying to understand the subsurface part of it, how the CO2 plume migrates, basically, and how it stabilizes, and what are the challenges, even MMB at that point in time. And that point in time, of course, this was not a talk of the town, basically. But I'm very, very happy to see that India is taking a lot of leads now in organizing and creating that awareness. There is very clear-cut urgency, which is accepted by our government, by the leaders within oil and gas, and leaders within different hard-to-abate industries. Now, for Schlumberger, last year we rebranded Schlumberger to SLB. So almost after more than 90 years of existence, basically, this is the first time that we rebranded. And it was a huge exercise for us. And we launched our rebranding in the New York Stock Exchange. And if you look at our new symbol, at the challenges in terms of what are the standards, how do I design my well, what are the MMB requirements, there is a lot of learning that is happening. The third part is really about the research, R&D, demonstration projects, and associated funding, basically. Again, all three are linked because they inform each other. The demonstration project which we do in India will inform the policy. The policy will inform the market creation, basically. So there is always an interlinkage, basically. So all of these need to go together. But the very first step at the moment, which today's talk is also about the demonstration project. So Schlumberger has been involved in demonstration project in US. One of the case we talk about is Illinois Basin Decatur project, where we injected 300,000 tons every year for 3 years, amounting to 1 million tons. And this was a funded project from Department of Energy in US, and one of the first project to get a Class 6 certification. So that's now kind of a gold standard from a well-designed perspective. So a lot of these standards, and they have been developed. But unless we do a demonstration project in India, we will not be able to fully inform that how do we tackle, what are the challenges that we face in India, including the MMB part, which Mr. Bhatia mentioned, and how do we create our standards, regulations, and how do we limit the liabilities, basically. That is also important. When you talk about the financing, the first thing financer asks is your cash flow. The second thing is limitation of liability. You cannot have unlimited liability, basically. So all these, like I said, they are interlinked together. So we, from Schlumberger side, we bring that experience from our international experience, of actually operating those demonstration projects. I mean, we were a consortium partner, and earlier in the roundtable, it was talked about the partnership and collaboration. So we were a consortium partner along with ADM, a large ethanol company, where we actually went and looked at, provided everything from the subsurface perspective. So we were a subsurface partner there. So since then, a lot of technologies have evolved, including especially even the MMB part. And we are happy to, we are engaging with, of course, the leading companies here to bring those technologies in the form of partnership, technical collaboration with them.
That's great.
In terms of the research,
Maybe
in terms of
30
the
seconds
research,
more.
I'll just say one statement that Professor Vikram is really leading that research from the frontier. And we need to create that local knowledge, local capacity building. And I'm really proud that, Schlumberger team is working, our SLB team is working with him in providing wherever the support required. But really, he's a champion of creation of this capacity building along with the ministry and everyone else he's working with. Thank you. I'm sorry I took a little more time.
Thank you for the kind words. And actually, as I said yesterday, we have the luxury of time in research, but the industries have to operate in terms of their, the balance sheets. So the challenges are, the portfolios are different, but at the same time, when we talk to each other, we understand what are the gap areas. And if that's the direction of research, that's where we are actually filling in the gaps. And that will accelerate things. So wonderful. Thank you so much. And since you mentioned, we in CCS community call it as a three-legged stool. One is the technology, second is the finances, and the third is the policy and regulatory. Any element that's missing, the stool is not going to stand in its place, right? So apart from the other elements that are there. So thankful to you for mentioning all of this. Next panelist is an experienced worker in this space with the Global Carbon Capture and Storage Institute. What I appreciate about CCSI, apart from what knowledge they're bringing to the world, is in the early, late 2000s, when I started working on this CCS, the component of U was introduced into CCS. It was never there before. So then, because of the utilization pathway, and then it became CCUS, I appreciate that you didn't rebrand yourself to CCUSI, remained a CCSI, and now that people have realized that is CCS going to take kind of overpower any of the utilization pathways. So Tara, you have a tremendous experience in this, and you have been listening to the deliberations last 1.5 days, and even before that. I want to understand what are the things that you have not listened that you want to bring forward from your knowledge and experience. And using this also as an opportunity, because you are also responsible for the communication with the community and so on. That element is very important for success of any project. So what are the gaps that you see that has not been discussed? And second component is on the engagement with community. Please.
Thank you so much, Vikram. Yes, it's first of all, I just want to say good morning, and it's lovely to be here today. As Vikram introduced so kindly, I'm the public affairs analyst for the Global CCS Institute. I'm focusing on advocacy for CCS development and deployment in India and also in the US state of Louisiana. I'm based currently in Washington, D.C. And Vikram's right. There's been a lot of really great discussions over the years, and particularly over these last few days. The Institute's goal is expanding and accelerating CCS development or carbon capture development, really, throughout the world. I do have some good experience in this that I brought to the Institute. My background in CCS actually. Like Vikram, we've actually been in this space for some time. My background was first introducing CCS legislation to the state of Virginia, which it didn't exist before, and also my fellowship work through Yale University and with the MacArthur Foundation, providing CCS guidance, and later contract work with the DOE's Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Management, where I also helped develop communication materials. And this is the point that when Vikram was asking what's missing, there's a lot of, we've been talking a lot about policy, appropriately, about the business development side and the business case for it appropriately, about the technology development and advancement and innovation, all very important. What's missing is the communication piece. For the MacArthur Foundation in particular, I did a literature review covering 18 countries, 5 continents, and the literature covered 15 years of publications. The second highest reason for CCS project failure, second only to fiscal complications, is lack of public support. This affects everything. It affects industry decisions, it affects policymakers' decisions, and it affects storage location siting, pipeline siting. It has many implications. The more public support that there is, the more likely we are to have not only development and deployment, but also more innovation, more people joining the cause and taking an interest and contributing to that work. So I sort of see it as a Venn diagram between public funding, private funding, policy support, and community engagement and public communication. So that's the main thing that I see as really the glue that would hold all of these pieces together, is if we had better communication across all sectors. I'm speaking about community engagement, but of course decision makers, and as was mentioned, Neeraj sir also mentioned a consortium. A consortium would be fantastic, something that would include, for example, geologists, economists, chemical engineers, labor unions, industry representatives, government representatives, even community representatives, who could all be on a consortium here in India and come up with solutions that are best fit for India. India has this advantage that it can learn from all of the work so far and efforts that have been done, the preliminary efforts that have been done in other countries, the successes and the failures, to really take advantage of that situation and create something that can exceed other efforts in many ways, and maybe even become the gold standard if it's done correctly. And this is really an inflection point. It's very exciting to see the amount of interest and enthusiasm for carbon capture and storage and utilization throughout the world, and particularly in India. I am personally very passionate about India and excited to be here on behalf of the Global CCS Institute. And so I look forward to further discussion on this point.
Thank you. Wonderfully said. And that's something, as you said, that itself emphasizes the importance of engagement with the community, is like if the second most important reason for failure. We don't want to fail. So because of the lessons that have been learned, so this is very important element which has been added to the communication in this group here. Thank you, Tara.
Sure. Sorry, just one more point I
sure.
wanted to make. When we're talking about fiscal risk is at most in danger if we lose support. We can do pilot projects. If there's not public support, the policies won't be there. If there's not public support, industry won't want to do it because their customers are turned off. At the end of the day, all of the fiscal risk really depends on proper communication. Sorry, that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you for adding that as well. So we are talking about the new approaches, that are there in terms of technology, and I understand we have the MD and CEO of New Era Clean Tech, and they are developing with another technology of coal gasification with CCUS, and with the new changing policies around coal gasification and then upcoming policies on CCUS. How do you see the scope for development, and how your technology is going to disrupt this space and rather provide a new direction for growth in terms of decarbonization in India?
Thank you, Professor Vishal. So at New Era, we are working on, should I go quickly or I will just run this? So as mentioned by Vishal, our approach is coal gasification plus CCUS. That's what we are like going towards, the blue chemicals and refineries, like Ashish and Neeraj mentioned few of the things. So, and recently we saw the announcement by cabinet and budget on coal gasification, and now expecting the similar policies on the carbon capture. So that's the story we are trying to see, like both, if both are, and then it becomes a good, because energy transition cannot be accelerated without business case and commercial feasibilities. So that's where we are coming from. So we have to look at some of the low hanging fruits and where we can drive this so that whole ecosystem gets benefited. So this is where we are moving. We started this company 2 years back, and we have done substantial progress on ground with a lot of, as mentioned with good communication, government support, and on ground we got good infrastructure support. So also we are looking, why I'm showing this, because we are also trying to create ecosystem. Like I'm going to talk about creating a innovation decarbonization hub where we can provide all the support. So we got a good infrastructure in terms of river, power, water, raw material resources, and policies around that. So it can be like our goal is to drive this project and also invite the ecosystem to come together and build on it. So I'm not going to talk into more details because lack of time, but this is what we are trying to do is in 2 phases to gasify 5 million metric ton of coal from WCL area to make into different products, coal to syngas, and then from syngas, hydrogen and methanol, DME, acetic acid, some of the and then you all know like how the gasification is better in terms of candidate when it comes to because internal like integrated pre-combustion CO2 capture is there. So also the cost of capture is significantly lower in the gasification. So that like part of the puzzle becomes easier. And different products from different. So we have seen that different examples, different technologies in CO2 capture selection. So I'm not going into detail, but if you see the cost here, like the cost of total operating cost of gasification based carbon capture is much lower compared to any other contenders. So this is where we want to see like create some success stories so that there is more momentum, and also as work closely with the. So one of the, in terms of coal gasification, so one of the project that we are very keen and working on is using green hydrogen and syngas together. So from coal to syngas, CO plus H2, by adding more hydrogen in proportion so that we can have C2H5OH, that's ethanol. So, and we know that ethanol market is substantially good in India. So looking at the products which can have this kind of feasibilities. So here, I mean, then in the utilization part. So this is one of the, but there are other things like I was there in a New York Climate Week, and there was a company called as Air Company. So in the New York Climate Week after party, all the drinks, vodka and alcohols, it was made from CO2 and they served in the party. I mean, they're into CO2, commercial CO2 into sustainable aviation fuels. But to make a good case, I mean, in terms of commercial, they're doing perfumes and alcohols to begin with. So now we are talking with them. So like players like Air Company, Sinata Bio, like on different places on aggregates. Logistically, we are near Nagpur, so it makes. So we are talking to different players to create this ecosystem. So we can do a syngas and then get different technologies together to get the products which can have we wish to today have a good in terms of policies and good market. So I mean, most of you are aware about this, so I'm not going to go in the interest of the time. But like issue, challenges, risk, and support that is needed. So like, but some of the things that I want to highlight is the first is, I mean, one of the things is preferential procurement to the blue chemicals or this product. That has to be as a private player to invest. That is the first important step that we need to have, apart from the carbon subsidies and incentives, tax incentives. The other is the mentioned by everyone is on the support in terms of the low-cost finance or carbon bonds. So fortunately, we have been supported by government of Maharashtra, so we have a substantial interest subvention for like next 15 years. So we are trying to, also key is here not to look at only the policy at central government, but look at the local governments as well. So our approach is we first went to local government and try to get maximum support on ground, but that's where the actual operation and your existence is there. And then now, first we got that and then went to the central government to get work on the policies to get together. So what we need in a pilot project is I mean, some CO2 emitter facility like gasification is good contender, and then other. And but the last is hub and cluster model, right? That's what we are. So this is a summary of what I've been speaking in this few minutes. But we are very keen on being like taking a step on the CCUS Innovation Hub and Cluster, where we would invite anybody who want input, offtake, support, policy, raw material, that we will take care of that as and then also work together on a policy. So this was
Wonderful.
a short. I thought that it
Yeah,
will
no,
be
this is very
helpful
effective.
for.
Thank you for sharing this deck of slides here, and we could visualize your vision through these slides. And it's clearly an assortment of different new technologies coming together at new era clean tech, quite literally. So thank you for sharing these insights. So in the paucity of time, I think we have 11 minutes left. I want to hear, rather than me throwing more questions at them, I would like to invite the audience to share some of your thoughts and questions. And I'll request the panelists to be very crisp and straightforward and like 30 seconds to 1 minute, try and answer so that we can accommodate more and more questions from the audience. So the floor is open to the audience. Please feel free to share those thoughts you have based on what was discussed. And clearly, I must say, since I've attended almost all the panels on CCUS, the thoughts that have been brought forward were quite fresh, and still that was not discussed in the other panels. So I first thank you for that. So the floor is open for the audience, please. Please go ahead. Yeah. If there can be a mic passed. Oh, yeah.
My question is basically to the ma'am from CCS Institute. It's regarding the public support that you were mentioning. Can you tell me? Can you tell us, share with us? Is there any policy framework or any regulatory thing that is actually mentioned along with the public support that is there? So, or public support or anything concerning that is mentioned in the policy framework or the regulatory compliance that is framed up. So, is there anything that is in written for all the other countries where these kind of CCS projects are being carried out? If yes, then what kind of policies does India need to work on for public support? Because we have had some hindrances with public support in certain areas of even oil gas exploration projects. So, can you add anything to that?
Absolutely. Yes, that's a wonderful question. It's and very thoughtful. It's I can only speak to the US, but I am aware that there are other policy supports in other countries, but I can speak in more detail about the US Department of Energy's efforts on that front. So that we have something called community benefits plans, which Vikram has worked extensively on. Each carbon capture site, before receiving funding from the DOE, requires to publish a very detailed, extensive community benefits plan that should address everything from jobs to the traffic that will be going through to any potential emissions or noise or disturbances or economics that will be improved in the area. Those sorts of things have to be very detailed, and which sectors of the community might be involved, which labor communities might be involved. So it's a very detailed analysis that must be submitted, and it's very competitive. And this is how these projects are receiving funding, is only if they can detail that. And that process of building the community benefits plan requires engagement with the community, and not unilateral engagement, but bilateral engagement, more like listening to the community, asking what the community needs, what are their concerns, and building a community benefits plan in collaboration with the community. So this obviously, no, it's not a cookie cutter model, and even in the United States, that process is unique to each area, each city, each county, each state where it's happening. And the same will be true in any country, particularly in India. A unique process would need to be created, but there are certainly models to build from, that India can build from and even succeed and be the gold standard for doing that.
Thank you. Wonderful. I think just to add, the early projects had those challenges more because there was less experience. Now this has been incorporated. Next question, please. Can I go first to the last one person there? Because I saw the first hand go there. The last person there. Yeah. Yeah, you are audible if you just want to.
Thank you. Thank you. So my question is to the panel. It's not specific to anybody. So yesterday, Dr. Saraswat spoke about some challenge, risk about CO2 storage, particularly some seismic risk. My question is what kind of ecological and societal risk are associated with this carbon storage? Has there been any study on these aspects? I would like to know anything on that. Thank you.
Anyone would want to pick up? Hello?
When we talk of the first project of CCUS, then the type of geological, there are risks. One is your the geological risks, the inhabitants. So we have to screen a candidate which has the least of all these elements. So there, when we screen a particular area or screen a particular zone, then we eliminate those risks one by one. There are templates available in the industry which will help you to select the relevant zones, formations where you can target your project. So those kind of studies are done, and I can share that considering those elemental risks and ruling out those risks, the western sector of India comes as a better candidate in terms of having minimum risk, as well as compatibility with because it's a hub of industrial hub. So from a source sink mapping point of view also, the first project can be taken in western sector, and we have done some collaborative studies with Shell, and we will be coming out with the candidate, the right candidate for the first project. So there are established templates. So Neeraj, can you elaborate on that?
So, I mean, as you mentioned, the report's getting ready and probably, but nothing as such at the moment because, I mean, we have to wait for the report to be out. But yeah, I mean, don't want to sort of let the thunder out before everything is ready and signed, but it's looking good. So I think that's all I can say right now.
You, Mr. Yomdo, you wanted to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the technical risks, the geological and lithological risk, we should talk about the societal risk. So you don't want the CO2 to go and contaminate your groundwater. So that's why your seal has to be very important. And linking it to the previous question, societal risk, let me give you an example. So, and ma'am, what she also mentioned about. Let's say coal, which is one of the biggest energy source for the country, almost 50%. Tomorrow you say that we will stop coal, right? And imagine the people, the workers, right from the coal fields here in Goa, all the way up to the northeast Margarita, which is the northeastmost corner of the country in Assam. Imagine all the workers who are working in the coal industry, and you tell them overnight, ki, we are shutting down on this particular source of energy. Amount of people who are involved, they will ask you, why? And you tell him or her, because your temperature is going to increase by 2 degrees next year on. What is answer? What you know? What answer he'll give you? He will tell you that, sir, मैं जी लेगा, I will survive. If required, I'll buy an extra cooler for the family as well. But if you stop this, I'm going to die tomorrow, and definitely my wife and children are going to die today itself. But we can at least survive for the next 40 years with that increase of 2 or 3 degrees. I think that's the answer he'll give you. So that awareness and the entire involving them as stakeholders is very, very critical. I think, ma'am. I think that's also what you emphasize on. So those are the things that really has to be also considered.
Thank you. I think just in the interest of time, sir, you had something to just respond to this? Okay. I think
No, I don't have a question. In fact, I'll just add on to what Saloma was just mentioning and about the societal impacts that are there. I'll just talk from the reference of how it's panning out in the COPs. So if you look at Paris Agreement, there the mention of just transition is only in terms of workforce. But in COP27, for the first time, it was the scope has been expanded not only from the workforce point of view, but it has also been expanded to societal and other impacts. So that's where it is now going into. And then now there is a just transition work program also, which has been brought in during the COP28, and dialogues are going to be undertaken there. So yes, the very specific example Saloma mentioned, that is the reality, and that has also been discussed at the highest levels also. Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful addition to this thought. And actually, that was also going on in my mind that time, that financing support should not just come for the capital support. It has to also come for particularly country like India. We have to look very carefully at just transitions. There's a large amount of workforce is actually into the fossil fuel sector. So I know that you had one question. If it's very brief and the response can be brief, it's fine.
No,
Otherwise-
we'll leave it for a later discussion. I was very keen about this ADB canceling your request. So because in California, they have this SB 1314, which does not allow any subsidies for EOR. But IEW do talk about use of extra CO2. If you can leave more than 50-60% from 300 kgs per barrel of CO2 per barrel of 300 kg CO2 per barrel of oil produced for the EOR. If you go to 600 kg per barrel of CO2 or 900 kg per barrel of CO2, it might still pass through as storage. So they are totally shut that we will not fund anything on EOR like California, or they are saying you have to do more.
No, the message that we got was that they would not be funding for any EOR process. It'll be only for storage.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. I think over the years, this transition is happening from utilization to pure storage from the climate change mitigation point of view. When the trust funds are depleting, the agenda is more to have this depletion. Anyway, I think we are at the close of this session. So I'll have 20 seconds to each of these panelists to share one remark which they think as a closing remark, because this whole conference is also ending, I think, with this session, because we have to move to the plenary after this. So I'll start maybe from that side. Dr. Bala Saheb, maybe couple of comments, 1 or 2 comments there in 20 to 30 seconds to close this final. Your thoughts?
I think we need to work on a mission mode and commercial viable. We need to start from that angle first to begin with.
Great. Very rightfully. Mission mode. Tara, yourself?
As you know what I'm going to say, communication is the key. One thing I probably didn't say and should have also said, the earlier we start, the better. Miscommunication is reaching more communities quickly, and it's much harder to change minds than it is to introduce the topic fresh. And there is actually shown in the literature review that I did that the more knowledge, it's a linear relationship, a positive linear relationship, that the more communities understand what CCS is, the more likely they are to support it. So if we can even start not only with school children, college-age children, fellowships, and with the workers to explain what we're doing, that information will infiltrate the community very quickly and in a positive way.
Thank you. Wonderful. Essentially, it takes more effort to bust the myths than rather to communicate the truth in the first place. So very rightly said, Tara. Thank you. Ashish, yourself, please.
I think the time has come for a clear-cut action. There have been a lot of deliberations and discussions, but for India, I think that time has come for us to go for a demonstration project. We all need to do everything in our own capacities as different stakeholders to enable it. Thank you.
Wonderful. From being less than 100 projects announced before 2020 to now above 500 CCUS projects around the world in 2024 early, that shows the intent of this transformation that's happening. So thank you for sharing that thought. Mr. Bhatia?
So very happy in the last 1.5 days to sort of summarize that very enriching discussion and knowledge sharing. So let's go ahead. But how do we go ahead? So we need a launch of a special purpose vehicle. Let's take some concrete action to say, how will collaboration happen? Let's get it on. Let's sign the documents and let's get it going.
Wonderful. Very straightforward. Special purpose vehicles.
Yeah, I
Mr.
think
Yomdo.
the most critical part for making this happen and making it happen really fast is partnership, partnership collaboration. So I'm saying partnership in three areas. So one is you have to have a partner who is your source, and one you have to have a partner who is your sink, or maybe like the project that we are doing, you can be the both. But the middle element which is there, the technical expertise, that is what is required because this is very, very new and nascent for India. So partnership, collaboration with people who actually know this business. For example, that's why we had this MOU with Linde, who are experts in this business, and we know the subsurface, they know the surface, so it's a win-win situation. And that's why where they also are very much interested that in future projects, if things happen, they can even come in as equity partners. So there are a lot of things that you can work on, but getting that collaborative work is very important.
Thank you for stating that. It's very important. Mr. Sinha, final from your side.
As we saw that the requirement of a demo project is very, very essential. We talked of policy support. I see the journey of CCUS is full of, gives us a lot of opportunities. The need of our is to build our capacity, develop our workforce, whether the CCUS can be included in your curriculum in academia, professional training programs, so that we have high level of skilled workforce working on this. And as ma'am said, engagement with the public. So there should be public campaign so that people are willing to or ready to buy a product which is carbon neutral. So that to that extent we have to go through our projects. And at the end, I wish it's a very optimistic wish that in the next India Energy Week we can have a panel discussing the experience of demonstration projects, maybe with While India and ONGC, and along with our technology partners. That yes, we have started demo projects, and let us discuss the learnings from that. Thank you.
That's indeed music to my ears. So thank you for saying that. So can we have a round of applause for this wonderful panel out here? So as we end this session, we are also possibly coming to the end of this international conference that happened. And I must acknowledge the presence of Shri Sunil Kumarji, who is the Joint Secretary of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Sir, it was your vision that we had the meeting first to develop something like this. And thank you for your leadership. Maybe I want to request you, sir, to come on the dais and share your thoughts as we close this event, sir. Please.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you. And so, we thought that CCUS needs some recognition, and Energy Week was the best platform to look for. So we thought, why not have a side event along with the Energy Week? So we moved in, and with the help of Vikram, Saloma, Sinaji, and all others, Director Exploration Sushma, we could stitch a program and sessions yesterday and today. Unfortunately, because of some reasons, I could not attend that, but I would have loved to join in this. So the main intent was to give CCUS a limelight because we are looking at a pathway very unique to our country. We cannot be following either West or the eastern part, Korea, Japan, which they have another issue, and West have another issue of size and magnitude. And we have another challenge is that we discussed in the roundtable that it's a diverse geological conditions in the country, seismological, there are seismic zones also regarding storage. But there is a unique opportunity in this country about utilizing carbon. And Ministry of Petroleum is well equipped because we have downstream industries where we are looking for e-refining, not today, not it's around a decade later, but we are very hopeful that our refiners are now replacing many gray hydrogen with green hydrogen. So the opportunity comes to synthesize e-fuels. So we are looking that more and more carbon can be used in this e-refining, making green methanol and upward higher molecules up to aviation fuel. So that is the larger game and larger plan for us. And then comes our upstream industry, which they have depleted reservoirs. They have ports to outsource to other industries where there is a heavy emission of CO2. So these are the areas and pathways we are looking into. And I'm hopeful that policy formulations and other will also take place with the inputs from experts from the field. And as Sinhaji said, that next Energy Week we'll be discussing a demo plan. Hopefully, yeah, I'm also very confident. We had started one in Koyali and one in Assam, but unfortunately, because of some technical or cost reasons, it has not taken up. But it will be taken up. We are not leaving any pathway in this country alone because even in biofuel we have taken all pathways from ethanol to SAF to biodiesel to compressed biogas. So India has always been a diverse country in all linguistic, language wise, racial wise. Even for this pathway, we want that different pathways to be used for carbon removal, and CCUS is one of them. And CCU and CCS are the two different, but they will work in tandem to remove carbon from our atmosphere. I thank panelists and all other people who have participated. And I take this opportunity to thank Oil India, ONGC, Saloma, Saurabh, and all others from IRS, Sinhaji and his team for making it a success. It was not easy. We decided pretty late, but we could make out a good, successful program. There were a lot of interest coming into, and next time we will have a bigger reservoir. I thought this looks like a carbon storage unit, so it is very symbolic for this conference. But next time we'll have a bigger and larger conference and one demo plant, at least one demo plant. Thank you, Vikram. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.